sorry for the slight delay. That's due to the chair this evening. But why don't we go ahead and call our meeting to order, please? If I could ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence. And then we'll ask Ms. Tackett to lead us in the pledge to the flag. Thank you. We definitely have a quorum. Before we start, just a comment or two. I appreciate everyone coming in with a mask, and I think that's appropriate. I know most, if not all, of our council is vaccinated, and very, very pleased with that. But as you wish to speak tonight, if you choose to lower your mask, I think that's okay. Depends on you. I think it would be appropriate for those comfortable to keep their mask up. And if you wish to lower it while you speak, I think it's appropriate. We're trying to ease back into this and do it best we can. I want to say to the council and our audience that we are delighted to be able to do this in person. We think important public decisions ought to be made with the public present, and this feels right to the council. So we appreciate your helping us meet this standard. So with that said, you've each received a copy of the minutes of our last meeting. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes? Thank you, Will.
Second, Mayor.
Thank you, Connie. If there are no questions or additions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, I got so used to doing that on Zoom, and it just seems second nature. Just to double check. Then the minutes are approved. Each of you should have also received a copy of our latest check register. If you received that, thank you. Under public comments, we've had a number of folks sign up for public comments this evening. I believe many of those who have signed up for public comment wish to do so about one or more of the zone changes that are on our agenda later on. I think you'll have an opportunity to speak during that time. Thank you very much. But if there's anyone here that has signed up for public comment that is not related to the annexation issues on our agenda or to the zone changes on our agenda, we'd be glad to hear those public comments now, if there are. And as I suspected, I think most of the interest does come from those zone changes. And for those who have signed up, we'll be glad to give you ample opportunity to address those questions as they come up in our agenda. One comment, should I fail to think about it later, if anyone is not on the list for public comment, but you end up making a public comment to the council, would you please go sign up for us? It helps our record keeping a lot to be able to do that. Several items for public comment. Just want to report to the council on a whole host of issues. At the last council meeting, we had been talking about where we stood in our conversation with the public about the proposed gross receipts tax. And I reported to the council that Andrew and I had presented this to Scott United and had fielded questions from that group, and that we were scheduled to speak to the Scott Industrial Forum. In fact, we did that on November 17th during a lunch meeting. The original plan, when I received the invitation, was for us to show the video that you all have seen and that you shared about the gross receipts tax. Their invitation to me to come to the Scott Industrial Forum came at about the same time that I was asking Jack Connor for an invitation to go there. I think we were each seeking an audience with the other on this topic. So what I wanted to do with that Scott Industrial Forum, and what I want to report back to the council, is Andrew and I used that hour-long opportunity to have, I think, a very productive, robust discussion with him about our tax situation in Georgetown, some of the history that has gotten us where we are, and what our next steps might be. That conversation was easy to guide in that direction because I was able to report to that industrial forum that there was really no need to watch the video because there would be no further immediate consideration of the gross receipts tax. And I saw little benefit to having a difficult session with them over something that was not going to move. It just didn't seem productive with them. So we used our time differently. We used our time to really focus as much as we could without watching the video on the equity issue that we've raised and the concern that we have that there's much about the way our net profits tax performs that is not equitable. It's not the businesses that are paying the tax, it's the structure of the tax itself leads to outcomes that we don't think are equitable. And we've learned that through looking at the data. So we continue to worry about that equity effect and hope that we can look at that down the road along with other reforms and possibilities. But frankly, from when the invitation was extended to me, and it was extended to me as a result of my comments during the State of the City address, when I gave a framework of what the gross receipts tax was intended to accomplish. And the circumstances were very different from the time I accepted the invitation to when November 17th actually occurred. A lot of things had happened. The main thing that happened is there have been 8 one-on-one meetings with the council that essentially stopped any real consideration of that moving forward in the current time frame. I had hoped that this conversation would eventually reach portions of the public and our business community that would have benefited. I believe that some of these proposals would have really helped small business. I don't think there was a real opportunity for them to understand that. It's a complex issue. We understood that from the beginning, that the biggest opponent to this was its complexity and the fact that it's different from what we've been used to. And it takes a while for those seeds to get planted and germinate sometimes. But the primary thing that changed were those 8 one-on-one visits. At that point, we will drop back and we will reassess a timeline, and we'll take guidance from the council on that timeline. and what other parts of that conversation will be. We focused on the equity question, and we had a lot of positive conversations from a lot of the manufacturers in the room about how they could actually, a couple of how they could help. It was productive in that way. So I wanted you all to know how that meeting went and why it went that way, and I'll be glad to take any questions you have about that after these mayor comments. Some real positive news. You all were aware of the Schwartz contract that the county had for litter abatement and picking up trash. And they had crews everywhere. They picked up over 900 bags of garbage. And one of their primary routes was around our bypass, McClellan Circle. So if it looks cleaner, it's because it really is. And we appreciate that effort. Your Christmas parade, December the 4th. That should be a good evening, and Laurie's already asked, and you given permission for that parade to occur. They'll be bringing in and setting up the tree on the 29th of November. And Laurie has promised again another monster, beautifully shaped tree. Really fun thing for you to know about. At the museum, they'll begin their Letters to Santa program. The old mailboxes are still intact at our museum. So children can actually come to the museum between November 27th and December the 4th and send letters to Santa and come back into their own mailbox and get a letter back from Santa on 12/18. So if anybody has any little ones that would like to be a part of something like that, that's pretty fun. Pleased to tell the council that Governor Beshear will be here on December the 1st at City Hall at 9:30 that morning to bring us a check for just over $2 million. And we will be happy to receive that check. That will be for water line extensions in our new bypass route. We've been concerned about water infrastructure in that area, and we're going to be able to use some of that money to establish that. We've been working with the county and GMWSS to see which project will best fit our needs for a project of that size. We have a handful of $5 million projects that would have really helped, but we didn't quite have $5 million. But if you can join us on the 1st, that would be really good. This is typically the time when we would consider canceling our second December council meeting. That's typically our schedule. Unless we have a need for a special call meeting, that would typically be our holiday schedule. Unless somebody just wants us to get together in late December, and we'd be glad to do that with you if you'd like.
Do you need a motion on that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to cancel our second December meeting unless otherwise needed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And Lions had the opportunity last week to go over and spend some time with Phil Bryant, Channel 27. And, I don't know who in the world is up on Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, but yesterday morning at 6 o'clock, I was on Bill Bryant's Newsmaker show, and it was a good chance to talk about Georgetown and some of the things we've got going on.
I was awake.
You were awake. I asked Carlene if we can get a link to that and send it to you. Just okay. Item 7 on our. Are there any questions about any of those mayor comments? Thank you. Item 7 on our agenda under GMWSS. Chase.
You're good, Mayor? You're good?
You're good.
We're not voting tonight? We have 5 items for council consideration tonight. Item A is recommendation for approval of the revenue anticipation note through Stockyard Bank. When we completed our rate study in 2019, we anticipated a line of credit for operational spending in intermediate financing of the wastewater treatment plant 1 upgrade and expansion. Since then, we have learned that municipalities structured as we are actually not eligible for a traditional line of credit. So we are looking to secure this financing through a $4.5 million revenue anticipation note, and this will be refinancing our current $3 million line of credit, again, that we cannot renew. The revenue anticipation note, the bid that we received that we're recommending is at a fixed interest rate of 1.85%, and our current line of credit that it's replacing is at a rate of 2.6%. We'll use the revenue anticipation note for operational expenses and to pay our invoices for wastewater treatment plant 1 over the next 6 to 8 months. We had some very interesting responses to this RFQ with we felt like Stockyard providing the best proposal to fit our needs. On our short-term and intermediate and long-term bond anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes, please remember that these will all be rolled into that final bond issuance when we're ready to issue bonds for that wastewater treatment project. The only change with this financing plan from our 2019 rate study that was documented is that at this point we thought that we would be requesting proposals for a approximately $20 million bond anticipation note. With our current issues on Plant 1, the delay, we don't need to do that at this point. We don't need that $20 million. So we felt like the $4.5 million revenue anticipation note was more appropriate for our current need. If council approves that tonight, we will have bond council draw up a resolution to present to you at your next meeting. As we've been advised by bond council, a revenue anticipation note requires a council resolution versus the bond anticipation note we've done in the past that requires 2 readings of a bond ordinance. Any questions on this proposal recommendation?
Take this one separately, Judge. It's of a different nature.
Whatever you prefer.
Any questions for Chase about the anticipation note?
Chase, when do you anticipate that to roll over? When do you anticipate that to roll over to permanent financing?
We don't know exactly when yet. It depends on how the project progresses. We do anticipate that we will use this revenue anticipation note, issue 1 more bond anticipation note, and then based on the recommendation of our municipal advisor, we'll take their recommendation and market conditions to determine when we issue the actual bonds.
Are they longer than a year though? Longer than a couple?
I don't have an answer to that
No,
question.
The only reason I ask is if it was on a fairly short timeline, I guess the U.S. Bank was pretty appealing, obviously.
Correct.
But you all like the fixed rate, not having to.
Well, when we actually looked at it and ran those comparisons, which I included the adjustable rate versus the fixed rate, while it was lower based on our spending schedule that we've looked at over the next 6 to 8 months, really wasn't that much difference in total interest. So
Okay. Here, I'll make a motion for approval. A little better. I'll say.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other questions for Chase? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
thank you. Item B on your agenda is a recommendation for our annual chemical bid unit price contract. We bid these chemicals every year on a unit price basis. As we use these at water plant and wastewater treatment plants, these are budget expenses within our operational departments. And as you can see, unfortunately, every chemical that we bid, except one, went up this year. It's just a sign of the world we're living in. But we'll just have to factor this into our budget annually. But they went up this year. We've got to have these chemicals for our treatment processes. So we have these recommendations for council consideration tonight.
Why don't we go ahead? Well, I think we can take the rest of them all together. This is
Item C is a task order for Summit Engineering for design and construction-related services for our Rogers Gap Pump Station project. This is a budget project in our current FY22 budget. We sent a request for proposal consultants in our contract are these days. Summit Engineering submitted a low bid of $73,000 for this service. Our budget for engineering services was just over $82,000, so we are recommending this task order go to Summit Engineering. Then items D and E are both construction pay applications to Judy Construction for the wastewater treatment plant project, number 1, and the splitter box project, wastewater treatment plant 2. Invoices are $152,059.81 and $347,000 respectively. The invoice for plant 1 is work completed in October, which we didn't have a lot of work completed, but that was mostly for stored materials that we accepted. Purchase order for plant 2 is a blanket purchase order. It's not that will be paid to this all for GE Construction at once. They will bill against this as they submit and we review and approve their pay applications. Any questions?
Any questions for Jason on item B through D?
These last two, Chase, are budgeted.
Yes, ma'am.
And if not,
Motion done.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Chase. And just to save everybody else the question, do you have an update for us?
Sure. We are currently, the council approved at your previous meeting, we are working with our third-party independent structural engineer, WJE. They are working again on what we're calling with the contractors, calling their critical path structures, that independent review of GRW's original design. They are going to have a technical memorandum to me this week on the biggest structure, and in mid-December on the other 2 critical path structures. GRW independently is working on their design corrective actions, what they feel will be what's needed to get the design corrected, get it right so we can get Judy back to work. When they submit that, which they are doing in pieces, as soon as they get one done, it's to us, and it goes to WJE. They review it. This is the quickest way we can expedite this process, get the project back on schedule. That's really the best update I have tonight. That's the process we're going through. Very happy with how quickly WJE is turning things around. And then we can get you back to work as soon as possible.
That's encouraging. Thank you, Jason. Item 8 on our agenda, under airport, is a resolution accepting Federal Aviation Administration grant. I understand that where the road lighting project for that road in front of the airport is actually going to encroach, cause an encroachment on part of our safety zone. So I think this grant enables us to extend the safety zone of the airport back in the other direction to compensate. You're not hearing me, Roy? Sorry.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, well, we're the same age, buddy. I was saying that the road widening project is anticipated to take part of the airport's frontage, and it encroaches on their safety zone for the runway. So this is going to be adding to the safety zone in another direction. I think that pretty much it.
I think that's right. And there's no match requirement. I think this is the third of a series of FAA grants that the airport's gotten over the last few months. So they're definitely making improvements in anticipation of that.
It's a really important airport, and they're taking steps to keep it that way. So, is there a motion for approval?
Motion made.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Tammy, thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Finally, for the audience's benefit, we can get down to the city attorney portion of the agenda. Under A is first reading of an annexation ordinance, Cherry Blossom Way Spur. Sponsors are Mr. Showalter and Mr. Mitchell.
property containing approximately 44.39 plus or minus acres located at or around 531 Cherry Blossom Way, Spur, in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary. 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A 412, approximately 44.39 acres of property located at or around 531 Cherry Blossom Way, Spur, in Scott County, Kentucky. 2. Provide for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 43224, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Held and introduced and read for the first time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. That will constitute first reading. We'll have second reading of the annexation ordinance at our next, at our last regularly scheduled meeting of the year. Tracy, we might as well, Stacy might as well go ahead and have first reading of the zoning rules.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 44.39 acres located at 531 Cherry Blossom Way, Spur, in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to I1. Summary. 1. Rezones approximately 44.39 acres located at 531 Cherry Blossom Way, Spur, in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to I1 industrial. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Held, introduced, and read for the first time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. I assume all of our audience is here for the second readings.
There's representatives for this project as well, if the council has any questions on this one.
If
Can confirm that.
there's a representative for this project that would like to speak to the council, we'd be glad for you to take a moment or answer any questions the council might have. Otherwise, we'd be glad to hold that off until the second reading when the council likes it.
Second reading would be fine.
Thank you. Then we can move down to item C, the second reading of the annexation ordinance from Cincinnati Road, sponsors Mr. Hampton and Ms. Tackett.
An ordinance annexing to the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 58.29 acres located at or around 822 Cincinnati Road in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary. 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A.412, approximately 58.29 acres of property located at 822 Cincinnati Road in Scott County, Kentucky. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November the 8th, 2021. Publicly read the second time November 22nd, 2021.
Motion for approval. Get this introduced and then we'll.
Motion made.
Thank you. And second. Thank you. To begin the discussion, I know council received an email from Ms. Golden that had some further detail from planning commission staff. I thought that was helpful, so you know the full import of your responsibilities. And then I appreciated her second memorandum to the council that laid out the legal process for zone change and the standard that the council must reach in determining a zone change. If indeed you ever make a determination that is not consistent with the planning commission's recommendation. So Devin spelled that out well, so I don't have to go through my poorly articulated comments about the same topic as I normally do. Both those were very helpful. this point, you all have, you know about the project and you've discussed it. Evan, should we hear from representatives of the project at this point, or hear from the council's questions?
Yeah, since the annexation and zone change are contingent upon one another, I think just go ahead and, let council ask questions and let the representatives answer the questions, and then vote on both of the ordinances after second reading on them.
The two are so intertwined that I don't think we can consider them separately. So, who is here? Mr. Davis? Who will be answering on behalf of?
Well, I'm Richard Murphy. I'll try to answer any questions.
Mr. Murphy, I'm sorry.
And Dennis Anderson is here with me as well. So if I can't answer it, I'm sure Dennis can. So I don't know if you want me to make any kind of a presentation to you or just answer questions, whatever you all want.
With a presentation from the applicant be of benefit to the council?
I feel like we did that last time, that you talked with us and answered the questions that we had. I was wondering, are there people from the audience who were public comment requesters who might say something, might have questions? Are we allowed to ask the people here that
Sure.
came specifically for those questions? Or no?
I'm assuming all the people who signed up for public comment are representatives of the applicant. If there is anybody from the public on those, absolutely, but I think it was just people signing up as a result of being party to the application. But I don't know that that's the case.
In fact, I'm trying to read the first line. Sorry. Regal Spring Development Company?
That's the next project.
That's the next project. So it looks to me like all of the public comments that have signed up are for the next project. There are no public comments for this project.
I thank you for coming.
With that, we cleared that up, right? Well, but, Mr. Burke.
I felt like that you answered the questions last time, just as
Thank you.
I had a whole lot of people that did contact me. Honestly, they were mostly concerned about the safety, and I felt like that you addressed that in the last meeting, and I appreciate that. And I felt secure that you would keep that foremost in your mind moving forward. And so I had all my questions answered.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a couple?
Yes, sir.
Of several individuals that are in the room, just some quick yes or no answer. Questions that just quick yes or no.
Go ahead.
What does that answer? Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Joe Kane, a couple questions. On this proposed zone change and annexation, am I correct that the staff of planning and zoning approved, let me go back. This annexation and zone change, if it happens, are part of, they're within the comprehensive plan, correct?
Correct, yes. This area is planned urban residential in the future land use map. So it is in conformance with that future land use map.
Okay. Second question will be, the staff recommendation of planning and zoning was to move forward with the zone change. Is that the recommendation in the?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We did recommend approval at the staff level, and we recommended to the planning commission that it be approved with the condition that it be limited to 150 dwelling units until a second entrance is provided. And the planning commission board followed that recommendation, and they are forwarding their recommendation with the same condition.
Okay. Thank you, thanks. And then Chase, I want to just ask a follow-up question. I think Mrs. Tack had asked the question at the first reading. Sewer capability at the present time is not going to be an issue for
Yes, sir.
this development.
This development has a current approved availability request by the Board of Commissioners. Was approved in, it was good for 12 months. They're still working on going through this process, so they've come back and asked for a 6-month extension. The board has approved that extension, and it is through, Mike reminded me, March of 22, I believe.
Yes.
And what that states by policy is the developer needs to be putting pipe in the ground by that time. That's what the clock is set on. It is accounted for within our current capacity of the existing wastewater plant. It's not required for the expansion. The expansion is not required to meet their needs.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last question, and I'm not sure who to, if this would go to the developer or the P&Z. One of the questions, or one of the topics that we talked about during the first reading was ultimately road improvements on 25. So I don't know who that, just as follow-up, to make sure that definitely, I mean, I know that's not part of our zone change and annexation, but I know it's an issue that has been brought.
And I think
Myself,
the
maybe
developer
several
representative would be glad to address some of that.
There are going to be improvements made as far as turning lane, left turn lane going north on 25, and a turn lane going south on 25 that will be a right-hand turn lane.
Yes, sir. Both of those will be made on 25, left turn lane, right turn lane. I will note we'll have both left turn lane and right turn lane coming out of the subdivision to 25 as well on that. And we'll have to do that according to all the requirements of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. We get all our permits and plans approved through them for those improvements, so we'll meet all our standards on those turn lanes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, talking about the expansion of the roadway, bringing in the turn lanes, how will you deal with the transcontinental gas line that is underneath that hillside right there under the fence?
We're aware of that being in the area. We'll have to comply with all their physical requirements on that. We have to, we'll be coming back to the planning commission with our development plans. They haven't seen the last of us. They'll be seeing a lot of us coming in. And obviously we'll have to get plans approved by make sure we're in compliance with all the gas line requirements. Mr. Kraft, our engineering director, is here nodding yes as I'm saying this to you.
Because it's not that far off the roadway that it's there, and I just wondered, you can't go to the hillside, you've got to come in, and I just wonder how close and how you will deal with that, because it's not that far underneath the ground there, so I just wondered that. So.
What we've done in the past is we've relocated it with a new line first before they take the old line off service, and we've done this 2 or 3 times in Lexington without any issues.
Okay. All right. And then my next question is to Joe. If they do not obtain the second entrance, what happens?
They'll be limited to 150 units. So I think that was Matt sent a memo out to kind of clarify where that requirement came from. It comes from our subdivision development regulations. So even if it didn't have to go through a zone change, they would have to comply with that, or they would need to provide that second entrance. It does say in our regs where physically feasible, so they can make an argument that, because it's topography or for some other reason they can't get that second entrance, but I think the planning commission is pretty clear they want some kind of second entrance. There are properties adjacent that they can connect to. So, I mean, there is a possibility that the planning commission can approve above 150 if they make the finding that it's not physically feasible to get that second connection. I think, I can't guarantee it. I mean, they could always come to that finding, but I mean, I'm pretty confident that they wouldn't approve over 150 if there wasn't some kind of second entrance.
With a short stretch of road that is on that hillside, curve on one end and a blind hill on the other, just a whole lot of safety concerns that I have on it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I have reservations about the safety because of the light entrance. It's still troubling to me, but I'm wondering in that, where the entrance to the property would be, is it 55 miles an hour there, or is it 45? Because we have so much traffic in the morning, and when those cars are going 55 miles an hour, and we're adding to it, it's, I
So
wonder if we might have
currently,
to adjust those speed limits.
currently it's 45 mile an hour till we get about halfway of the frontage of the property.
Right.
Then it's posted 50,000 an hour. But when we take this project to the highway department for the final approval of all the plans, they look at all of that information in the design portion. And we'll have to meet all of their designs for their speeds that it's posted at. So each speed limit has a set of criteria we have to meet to accommodate those.
So there's a chance that the speed limit might be changed?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
that's it.
I think that would be
That's one of
wise.
the factors they look at.
And is there a chance, a few years down the road, if the traffic gets such, how would the process be of giving a stoplight there, especially during the school hours? Is that a city thing with the roads, would it be a state?
Be a state decision.
But we could make a recommendation for them to look at it?
We can, Willa. What typically happens in those situations, though, to get a traffic light in, you have to, their verbiage is you have to meet warrants. You have to meet traffic counts
Right.
at different times of day. And we find that those types of intersections meet the warrants overwhelmingly at 2 times a day,
Right.
but not during the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And but something we can certainly talk about.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council for we've got Mr. Anderson here himself. Yes, sir.
For Joe or Deb, the clarification memo that came out, it states that where it's not physically feasible, if that's later determined that they can't do it, so all they have to do is come back before you and seek an adjustment to that. Is that correct?
Well, that would be evaluated at the time of the preliminary development plan. So the next step would be to submit the development plan to planning commission. So that, I mean, if they submitted a development plan that didn't show a second entrance, they would have to show, in order to get approval for above 150 units or lots, they would have to show that it wasn't physically feasible. Planning commission would have to make that finding, and then it would be a waiver of our subdivision regulations.
So that, if we vote to approve this stuff, basically, it doesn't come back before us, you can make that adjustment without, why can't we go ahead and do that, I guess, feasibility study, determine if it's going to be possible or not? Because, I don't feel confident, as Will stated, I have reservations about the safety concerns, and, I would like to for sure know what I'm voting on. Am I voting for what's the commission has currently approved, or, if it's later going to be changed?
You mind if I chime in, Joe? I just pulled up Matt's memo because I think it's important. He indicated that the condition could be amended by the planning commission at a later date upon request by the applicant. While staff supports the limit on the number of units without a second entrance, planning commission may alter or remove the condition. If the commission were to remove the condition in the future, the applicant could potentially build up to 174 residential units to be constructed without a second entrance. So yeah, the idea is not that the condition is lifted and 600 units are now approved. So I just wanted that point of clarification, that when he says that they could waive that provision, you're not waiving it in its entirety, in the sense that the initial concept plan is automatically in. So we're looking, I just want to make sure that was clear, that it wasn't an automatic, you're in with your original 600 units. It would just be an increase from the 150.
From the 150 up to the 174.
Right, and it's, that the breakdown on that's 100 multifamily and 74
Right.
single family,
Okay.
so, yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So that exposure would be limited. to that.
That's
That's a good clarification.
Thanks, Jim.
Any other questions from the council? If not, we have before us the ordinance, motion's been made and seconded for second reading of the annexation ordinance. So if there are no further questions from the council, Ms. Tracy, call
Mrs. Sandberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes, but I want to make sure that safety concerns for the general public are addressed correctly on 25.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. If we can then move forward with item D on our agenda, second reading of the zone change ordinance for the same property.
Right back.
No, you read
Just the annexation.
the other annexation and such.
An ordinance changing the zone classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 58.29 acres located at 822 Cincinnati Road in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to R2. EUD. Summary. Rezoned approximately 58.29 acres located at 822 Cincinnati Road in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to R2 PUD. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent law of several relative provisions and effective date on passage of publication. Full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November the 8th, 2021. Publicly read the second time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion made.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any further questions on this particular ordinance? All right, then, if we could call the roll, please.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes, but stating the same concerns for the safety of the general public traveling on 25.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandberg?
Yes.
That is approved.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I just want to bring it up because it's not part of this zone change and annexation, so I'm trying to make it quick.
Sure.
Over the past several weeks, as I've traveled that stretch of road, trying to visualize ultimately what that's going to look like down the road. As I'm going north, I usually turn around at the Colony and then come back into town. And I know you and I talked about this last week. When you're coming out of the Colony onto 25, there's no left-hand turn lane.
You can get stuck there for a while.
You can get stuck there for quite a while if you're trying to really turn left, but also at times as the traffic's backed up, it's hard to turn right out there, but it stacks up good ways at times. I know that's not part of this zone change and annexation, but I think we have to have the vision probably should have been done when that development was built, and those roads were put in, and it wasn't, unfortunately. So just kind of like stormwater that we've been talking about, this similar issue that we have to address. And I would like to, I mean, I know we've only got, after tonight, we've only got one more meeting left, but hopefully in the next year, maybe we can have some further discussion and try to get a cost of, you know, to put the left-hand turn lane there coming out of the Continental to 25. So just want to bring that up, and hopefully we can
It would really
have more
help.
discussion on it.
One car turning left, runs it off.
May I address that, Mayor?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to let you know, Mark, that that is something that in the traffic committee we've been discussing a lot, so that is on our radar to look at.
We've got to make that happen.
And coming down that hill, especially in the wintertime, it needs lights, and it's just, everybody slides out of the road. But, you know, when Murray Riffey built that originally, there wasn't near as much traffic in Georgetown as there is now, and there wasn't near as many houses, but that's just a nightmare to try to get out of, especially twice a day when it's during school traffic. And even after that, when Toyota's traffic comes out of there too, so.
We're looking at it.
And as we move forward, that traffic actually might get worse. As far as more traffic volume down the road, it could.
With the traffic volume and the counts, with what the mayor's talked about when it comes to the state, it's going to make a difference as to what we're going to be able to do there on 25. Isn't that correct, Mayor?
I'm just going to say this in closing, it needs to be a priority, and I'm sure it will be in the traffic.
It is with us, I mean, we're kind of hampered by the state, and it's in their court, not so much ours.
It's a great example of, if we could have seen into the future 20 years.
Right.
And we would have asked the development at the time, that this is really going to become important, and we should consider it. Now it may be a necessary public improvement, but some stack room is necessary. It gets to be a real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we could make
That whole center island is really that.
we measured it, we tried to squeeze in lanes, but just it needs some physical, a little bit of physical. But thank you all. Let's see, that moves us down to item E on the agenda, second reading of an annexation ordinance for the Lissa Drive. Sponsors, Ms. Amber and Ms. Tackett.
An ordinance annexing to the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 54.86 acres located at or around 94 and 698 Village Drive in Franklin, Kentucky. One, annexes into Georgetown city limits, shall represent of the property owner in accordance with Paradise 81A, 412, approximately 54.86 acres of property located at 94 and 698 Village Drive. Two, provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability provisions, and the effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetowncontrol.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November the 8th, 2021. Publicly read the second time November 22nd.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Laura.
Second, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there questions from the council? I know we have 4 representatives from the development company here that can answer questions and may want to speak to us anyway, but I'd be happy to take your all's questions first.
I thought you did a great job last time explaining what you were doing, and we appreciate you coming and explaining what it's going to look like, the amenities that will be there. It sounds exciting, and it sounds to me like it's something that we need in Georgetown. And we have a couple of developments that are sort of similar, and they're full, and waiting lists and so forth. And I appreciate you laying it out for us.
Yes, sir.
I'll echo Tammy's comments there. I mean, we really looks nice. I just have one question on the floodplain. I think it's the back side. It looks like the floodplain comes right up to the edge of the property line. Is that correct?
Just the street and floodplain, just a turn.
There was a floodplain map that was, planning staff looked at. There is a floodplain and there's a floodway. And the floodway is where, I think the experience of where the water actually goes generally in the floodplain is the 100-year mark. It was my understanding that in the areas where the floodplain is all going to be conservation zone. And there won't be any development at all in that. I think there was maybe one small portion where there was, the developer was gonna have a turnaround. And that might involve a little bit of in the floodplain, but not in the floodway. And we will have to work with the staff on any movement of dirt in that area has to go through a rigorous approval on the planning staff to make sure that we satisfy the subdivision development regulations as regards to any work in the conservation zone. This project involves, roughly speaking, about 54 acres. There was 0.856 acres of conservation zone already. As a part of our project, we're going to be adding 21.869 acres of conservation zone that will not be subject to development in the future. And that's going to basically cover that whole floodplain where that will be protected and preserved in the future. There are some items, there's some development that can take place in that, such as like a walkway or easements, and we're willing to work with the planning staff to create those easements, but the main thing is that our idea was to preserve and protect that area.
Quick question, and you may have, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Quick question, can you tell us again what the unit mix is going to be, how many units?
There is a 56 duplexes, which will be 112 units.
And then I know Mr. Showalter was concerned about lighting. I think you all talked about that as well, that you all are going to do all you could to improve lighting.
I think our streets are going to have some, as I understand, some low-level street appropriate lighting, more like an old-fashioned street light along our vehicular path.
Yeah. Okay. But back to the duplexes, those are geared towards senior living, right? It's
Yes.
Yes, sir. 55 and whatever the case may be.
Yes, there's a 55 and older ownership requirement.
Yeah. And then will there be amenities for those folks? I mean,
Yes, sir.
everything from meal preparation to helping with medications, things like that?
No, but I'm Glenn Dellab, I'm the developer of this crazy scheme. This is a 55-year-old facility for people to age in place. The only thing we have on campus, we have no medical staff here. We have people that will help them at our clubhouse to come on down and open mom's pickle jar or fix their clock, or we're not in the medical business.
Okay.
We're here to pick people age and do that.
Okay.
While I'm standing here, the other side that you gave me, Mayor, last time was to talk about the easement of this pathway along the river area. And we would like to get together with the school system and maybe the county, give Joe something else to do, and meet with you all how this could be a benefit to this community. You know, how that fits, we know what that's going to look like, we don't know how we do that, but we want to be a good neighbor. It's a beautiful piece, we want to keep it intact, but we would love the school system to come on down, do their biology studies or whatever they need to do. But I also have my seniors to keep an eye on to make sure that they feel protected and they feel like their space is not going to be true. So we came back, I've talked to my development people, our engineering people, we hope we can by the final development plan to have some answer for that for you, but we don't have that tonight. But we are really working hard to try to get that done for the school system, if we can do that.
Could you, just a general comment, not only the school system, but we're very close in Georgetown and Scott County to finally getting movement on the Legacy Trail. It's been talked about for a long time, but we're close to making a breakthrough. Scott County several years ago applied for a TAP grant to get the Legacy Trail through the Fayette County portion of through the Scott County portion of the Horse Park. Fayette County already has it through their portion of the Horse Park. Scott County's applied for that grant again, and I'm really optimistic about their funding. When they get that Legacy Trail through the Horse Park and through the tunnel and to Lila Road, we're at the soccer complex. That happens immediately. Then we're to Dennis Anderson's development, and he's dedicated rights of way for that Legacy Trail through all of that big development of his. We're close to being downtown. This thing can become real much quicker than we ever thought. So access, just eventually public thoroughfares like the Legacy Trail don't need to hit dead ends at the creek. I appreciate what you're building, but legacy trailers don't need to hit a wall at the creek on behalf of just the people who live there. Okay. I'll get off my soapbox. That's as clear as I can be.
I would like to ask a question, if I may, Mayor. I've seen your design and the plans for it. Are they going to be total brick and on one level, I'm sure?
Yes, ma'am, there's going to be a mix of stone, brick, and hardy board.
Okay.
There'll be porches where people can sit on the porch.
All right.
People have a design out the back to have a Florida room if they would like all season, or they can just have a patio, or they can have just a cover. That's their options that they have.
Oh, okay, that's really
Yes,
nice.
ma'am.
And about how many square feet per unit?
1,800 to 2,000 square feet. They're all open concept. There are, of course, no stairs. There is zero right through the front door, right through your tile, right to your bedroom. All handicap accessible, all ADA requirement. So you'll be able to take a shower as you grow and as you need. Those facilities, they'll be available to you in a very stylish way.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Sounds very nice.
Mayor, can I ask a question? I'm in support, so just asking questions.
Okay, be easy on me. It's my first time I've been here. So.
You're doing great. So will you sell one side of a duplex unit? Is that kind of the, will you sell just one side of a duplex unit? Is that kind of the?
That's one unit.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Of course, we will maintain all the common outside, the grounds, the gutters, cleaning, and all that stuff. And we go a little further. We also do the inside maintenance. Your dishwashers, your light bulbs, your filters. It's a little upper more scale than what's around town that we provide.
So where else, and again, this doesn't really matter, but I'm just kind of curious, where else do you all develop, or where do you originate from? Or?
This concept is a hybrid concept that I've been working on for 10 years in my life. And Georgetown was a place we wanted to start because we think for the location of it, the quality of the living here, and of course the beauty of the land all fell into that. This will be one of 7 locations which we will build this concept. We will be down in Naples, Florida, we hope, so people can buy their unit here and buy one of our other facilities or another location as a bungalow community. But we'll all be under one roof of their information and family and taking care of them under that thing. So we have 7 locations picked out throughout the country.
Okay. Now, this will be the first, though, in terms
Yes,
of
sir.
actual development?
Yes, sir.
And then where do you all call home? Where's home
Lexington,
base?
Kentucky.
Lexington.
Most of our staff is Lexington, Kentucky. Our realtor, Carolyn Wheeler, has been in Lexington for very long. I break in the property management business. I've been in business 32 years. Rob Bolton is our developer. He developed Heartland and has built many facilities like this. We have a very good team, and Cornerstone Properties is going to be our actual on-site builder for this project. So we're all together, all that we want to do, what we've got done. So it's, we've had a lot of people call us, but we're ready, but we want to make sure that we get the planning staff what they need and get moving to get going. So we're moving cautiously, so.
Okay. Again, I hate to take a step back, but for those that either haven't already, don't know, or didn't watch the first reading, we can just take a step back. Joe, I'll just repeat the same question I asked on the first annexation and zone change.
Yeah.
For this zone change and annexation, this property falls inside, it's within the comprehensive plan, correct?
Correct. This area is planned urban residential, and the floodplain area is planned conservation, so they are following the comprehensive plan.
And is it correct that planning and zoning staff and planning and zoning board, the board, voted or
Correct.
approved
Yes,
for
yeah.
this zone change and annexation?
Yes. At the public hearing, a lot of the neighborhood came out, White Oak and Paints Landing, so a lot of feedback. The planning commission recommended unanimously to approve the zone change to conservation and R2.
Very good. Thanks. And Chase, if I could just ask the same question that I asked on the first zone change and annexation about the sewer capability.
The developer, this will go to wastewater plant 1. The developer has submitted an availability request, and it's currently on our wait list. If you, I believe it's second or third.
Number 2.
currently,
Number 2.
But it is on the wait list for consideration. I cannot answer when that will be heard by the board, considered by the board. I would say, and I'm saying this to anybody that's watching, until we have a better handle on our schedule, on what's happened, I don't know that we will be putting forward anything for consideration. And if it is, it will be over a period of time, at least until we have a handle on our revised schedule for the construction.
Thank you. The only other concern I have, Mr. Busby touched on it. I'm sorry, I know you asked the question about the sewer at the first meeting, or last meeting, so I'm sorry. If you're coming off of 460 onto Delissa, again, I don't want to be negative, but I was on that road twice this weekend, and that street, and that road, that street, there's going to have to be improvements made to Delissa, coming in and out of off of 460, including street lights on Delissa. So that's a concern I have. I know Mr. Stone and Mrs. Hambrick and Mr. Hampton talked about the Cincinnati Road, the safety there. I think Delissa's the same. It's not the same magnitude, but it's a concern. In Delissa, the way it's set up right now, handle additional volume without some improvements being made. And I know at my age, I'm starting to have trouble seeing at nighttime when there's no adequate street lighting out there, and that's a concern. So just wanted to lay that out.
Any other questions or comments?
I think that's one. I thought there was going to be an entrance on the other side too. Isn't there 2 entrances?
There's 2 entrances, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are fully well aware that we believe for the success of our project, it needs to be well lit for the people who we're going to serve. And it can't be dark or shadows. And we will do something very creative with the lighting to make it very well safe. Plus, our entrance has a lot of lighting in it where our heating is also. So we'll work very well with KU to get the proper lighting that we need there. We totally agree, it's very, very bright there.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Mr. Showalter, one of our conditions of approval is we have a condition of approval to improve our section, our side of Delissa Drive, to the city standard. So there will be some improvements to Delissa Drive as it relates to the road itself over to on our one half of the road. So there will be, I don't know if that's general widening and, but all that will be overviewed when we bring our development back.
Any other questions? see, just making sure I'm on track. We're still in the annexation.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second, so I think we're ready to call the roll.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Ms. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Thank you. Then we can move to item F on the agenda, which is second reading of the zone change ordinance for the state fire.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 54.004 acres located at or around 94, 96, and 98 Melissa Drive in the city of Georgetown, Stark County, Kentucky, from A1 to R2 ED for 32.135 acres and C1 for 21.869 acres. Summary 1. Rezone approximately 54.004 acres located at 94, 96, and 98 Melissa Drive in the city of Georgetown, Stark County, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to R2 PUD for 32.135 acres and C1 for 21.869 acres. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws and severability provisions and amendments made upon passage of publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.com. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November 8, 2021. Publicly read the second time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you, David.
Second.
And second by Lola. Any further discussion or additional
Maybe.
questions?
If I could ask Joe one question. At the open public meeting you had, what was the major concern from the residents that was out there?
I think just the fact that there were duplexes was one of the major ones. Flooding was brought up. And, I bet all the water's gonna flow towards this project, not away from this project, so. Just concerned with development and loss of their view shed too.
How far down past Amen Corner, does it go?
Well, property, I don't think it really goes to Amen Corners so much. I mean, there's like a little tail
It's a
of
strip.
property that runs all the way around the back, but the property where development's occurring is
More
Yeah.
on the hill?
further towards the road.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Thank you. Carries. Let's see, item G on our agenda is approved executive session.
I move, Mayor, to enter executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810(1)C to discuss matters of proposed or pending litigation against or on behalf of the city.
Thank you.
Second.
And second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Letter E, opposed? Thank you. We will be in Andrew, we will make sure we're paused on the camera. And buy some new switches. However, they're expensive, new switches.
As everything is.
Yeah, periodically. But they're obviously technology switches. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
Second, motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item D, municipal order approving the renewal of this Avaya support contract with Integration Partners. We've always been doing this, and it is previously been tied up in a different contract that you approved in a different way. It's coming to you this way this year. So it's the first time you've actually seen it as a standalone, even though you've approved it before. Is there a motion for approval? Or if, first, are there questions? And if not, is there a motion?
So,
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes,
You want a
sir.
motion?
Got a motion?
Second, I'm
Got a
sorry.
second?
That did be on the right side.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that is approved. Item C, I am so pleased on behalf of the Public Works Committee and the staff that we are at this point. This has really been a long time coming. I'm so sorry. Andrew has distilled a lot of this very complex information. It's not complex, it's just a lot of it. And to be able to get it all together so the council and the committee can see it all at one time, we've prepared a short PowerPoint presentation that's just 6 slides that'll show us the impact if we don't make a change to privatization, what the impact will be if we do make the move to privatization. And what we can tell you, it's going to cost us money either way. It's going to cost us less money to go to privatization, and we believe there are more benefits to privatization. But it's not completely a break-even proposition for a variety of reasons, what you'll see in this PowerPoint presentation. Our employees some of them did not want to go to work for another employer. They really like working for the city. They like our department, they like what they do. And some people wanted to stay. We made a commitment that we wouldn't lay off anymore. And we also have made a commitment for a very long time to give Public Works more resources than they've had in the past. To do some of the beautification, some of the cleanup, some of the things that we all want to see done in Georgetown, but we just haven't had the manpower. And this is our opportunity to address some of that as well. So this presentation is going to be real specific about head counts now and what will result. Because some people didn't want to leave us, we're temporarily going to be higher than I thought we'd be. But we think that will resolve itself pretty quickly. We have turnover and that will resolve itself pretty quickly. So, but we think at the end of this short presentation, we'll be ready to have first reading of 2 ordinances. One that creates the franchise fee to do this, the franchise ordinance to do this, and the second are the necessary changes to our solid waste ordinance to allow us to do it. So, Andrew, I'm going to let you walk through this PowerPoint presentation. Is it going to be behind me?
Yep. So I promised everyone I'd keep this as quick and short as possible to get to your all's questions, which I think is what really matters. This is our 3rd presentation now on this idea. But as the mayor said, I'm going to present to you 2 alternatives. The first alternative would be if we stayed in the municipal sanitation business. We talked in our 5-year plan about hiring 4 new public works employees. We've already hired 2 of them, or at least added 2 of them to the budget. So hiring 2 more would bring the total public works authorized staff up to 21. Currently it's 17. We've actually been holding there, not filling vacancies while we talk about this. But if we stay in municipal sanitation business, because of the higher tipping fees from the closing of the landfill, the general fund will have to subsidize sanitation by $527,000 annually. Our current general fund cost is about $2 million, and it would increase to $2.6 million. So there's a general fund impact of $664,000. Plus, we've got aging trucks, so we would have to buy new trucks, and we'd have to continue to hire and train CDL drivers. And of course, we would not get curbside recycling. That's in a nutshell, that's what it looks like for us to stay today in the sanitation business. If we were to privatize under the deal we have bid and subsequently negotiated with Republic, the plan would be that we would move 9 people ultimately from sanitation to public works. That's 2 crew leaders, 6 workers, and 1 mechanic. We would also fill an existing vacant worker position, and then we would convert a driver position to a worker position and fill that from sanitation. So all said, right now, we have an authorized strength of 19. We would go to an authorized strength of 26. That's an increase of 7 over where we are. You'll see that the general fund impact is virtually identical, or I'm sorry, the new general fund cost is identical. The difference is we will get $210,000 a year in franchise revenues. Half of that, we'll talk about that in a little bit, half of that will go to GMWSS as collections admin costs. We'll get a one-time bump from the sale of our garbage trucks, which we hope is somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 of sale proceeds. So that the annual general fund impact from that change would be $490,000 more, and so slightly less than staying in the sanitation business. But unlike staying in the sanitation business, 85% of the increase in cost is staff. It's new people instead of tipping fees. And of course, we'll get curbside recycling out of the deal. That is a comparison in a very high level of the difference in those 2 positions. We also, as the mayor said, we currently keep 3 drivers, and that would bring the total temporary authorized strength to 29. And the idea would be that as those drivers leave or retire, that we would simply not replace them. Ultimately, we would get down to the authorized strength of 26. In the meantime, that is a temporary increase in the budget of $177,000. This is what public works and sanitation looks like right now. It's really not necessary to go over it in detail. You'll see there's 33 total employees in a variety of different positions. This is what the new public works department we're proposing would look like. And the admin stays exactly the same, but we've created 4 crews: a stormwater crew, a streets and signs crew, a mowing crew, beautification crew, and then we would have a couple of folks that would float in and out of there, and then the mechanic would, of course, cover all the departments and all the equipment. So you'll see that we have drivers and equipment operators. I think that 3rd category there, or 4th category, beautification, yeah, there's a 3rd equipment operator there. So that's just a breakdown of what we're proposing. You'll see that we've got people to cover positions, people to do things where we feel like we didn't before. And there's a hope that if and when we get to a stormwater utility fee, that gold band over there on the left, that could be funded with stormwater utility money. And these are the final considerations. We've spent the past 8 weeks negotiating with Republic. There was a little bit of delay. Our primary negotiating person had to unexpectedly leave town. One of the things that we included in our bid was the ability of the contractor to increase the rates, the sanitation rates, by the CPI. But if you all look in the news today, you'll see the CPI is at 6.5%. So we assumed that risk. So we negotiated a flat rate of 3% instead of the CPI. We looked at several other alternatives, and we actually tried to negotiate a lower rate, but that was their floor. But that is our recommendation. And then we talked a little bit earlier about paying GMWSS an admin fee. They currently get up to 7% of our sanitation fund collections, or I'm sorry, our 911 fee collections. What we've proposed is that we change that to 5% for both sanitation and 911, and that's approximately $175,000 a year. And we think, in talking with them, their staff, that is reasonable. That is not something, I don't think the board has approved it fully, but I think they've had conversations internally about that. They've discussed it. Right. And considering that we've historically paid them $5,000 to collect, we couldn't, in good conscience, continue to do that. And the last thing is that we had the ability to start the contract January 1, but Republic asked if there's any way you could delay that, that would be great. So, and we have an anticipated and agreed start date for both garbage and recycling of February 1. And they told us they would make a mad dash. They would actually hire a third party to come in and deliver recycling carts to everyone the week before, the last week of January, essentially. They'll have to bring in tractor trailer loads of these carts to distribute, 11 to 12,000 of them. But essentially, other than your all's questions about what's going to change and what's next, we're poised to make this happen and start in February.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about getting the recycling containers.
One more thing I'll add, you talked about this before, but we agreed no matter what, we would keep our recycling center open through the end of this fiscal year, just for transition purposes.
The Public Works Department has long suffered in city operations, and we've really tried to give more proper attention and proper resources to the Public Works Department. Robert's done a really nice job with the department. We've been able to get better equipment out there through our enterprise fleet management program. It means the world to that department to have good equipment. And to now have a plan to do something that is this big in scope and make such a big improvement to our ability to do public works type improvements. I'm really pleased with the department. And Robert, anything that you'd like to add or say, or you've kind of guided the committee through this?
No, I mean, we're excited. There's a lot of things that we want to do that we kind of put on the back burner. I know I've talked to Todd and Greg about it a lot, and they both want to see us do more. I'll talk to David. I know David said he's got some ideas, but, which we do too. But, the biggest thing that we have is you have to pick up the garbage. And when we're short on the sanitation side, we have to pull from the public works. So the public works side suffers. We might not get the potholes out. We might be a week late on the potholes. Mowing or something like that, because we have to pick up the garbage. You have to. That's not right. But, the stormwater, there's a lot of things we addressed. We did, actually, the last 2 weeks, we did 4 maintenance projects on them because we had to. There was holes in the road. So that is something that really needs a lot of work. The downtown project, you go in, we still keep 2 landfills up, Sims Road and Briar Hill. We do probably minimal maintenance on them, so we want to do a little bit more on those. So we have a lot of work to do, and we're excited for it. we're excited about the curbside recycling, I think everybody is excited about
Is the morale good?
that. Yes.
With your workers good?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So once we transition out of the recycling plants, what, do we have plans for that building and that space?
No, actually, you know, we got some ideas. I've got some ideas. I mean, you know, but we don't, you know, the city, that's the city's property, they can do what they want to.
I would assume it might stay in the public works domain, that need space, equipment, and
Yeah, it's a nice period of transition since the water companies moved to their new operations building. And the formal property swap that we did with the sewer plant land, we now own and have access to the old operations center there in Clinton. We intend to improve that parking lot for nighttime parking to help with Water Street parking. And maybe move a piece of equipment or two down there for public works to have a downtown spot. Or we can do the same thing at this location.
And we'd like to put the sign shop, the sign equipment down in town. We do not have room at the current location for the, you know, the signs, posts, the sign making equipment. We'd like to, that would be the first move down there. I've got an idea on the recycling. I don't know if y'all want to, you know, talk about that now or not, but I kind of like to make that building do salt. We'll hold more salt than we correct.
It's a perfect piece of property for the city to own. We struck that deal years ago with Frank Hammond. And he was willing to let go of it, I think, much to the chagrin of Richard, who was much younger at that time. But the city has that, it's very valuable for us, so we will have a piece. Yeah. And normally this department doesn't get this kind of attention. I'm glad it is, and I want to thank Todd and Greg. This committee normally doesn't have to work this hard either. This has been some real focus here, so I want to thank you all. Madam Clerk? Yes, sir.
The franchise fee. Help me understand the franchise fee that comes with how that's structured and what that.
The franchise fee is 10% of Republic's collections. So you can take the rate, multiply it by the number of households, multiply it by 10%. That's what we get. So the reason it's we get half of that is because 5% would go to GMWA says. As the rate increases, so slowly the revenue.
So the rate for residential customers is going to be what, $16 and some change?
$15.68.
$15.68. Starting rate. That's right.
So we'll get 10% of that. Is that what you're saying?
Like I said, I figured it the first year at about $210,000.
Okay.
And any additional services, so any dollar they make as a result of our franchise agreement with them will get 10%.
Okay. And that matches the 10% that already exists for all other haulers.
Okay. So is that an arbitrary number that we just came up with, that 10% number?
We chose to match it to the existing commercial rate that, like, someone pays to haul a dumpster.
Is there a limit on that?
There's not a limit, but you'll recall that we advised that we decide what it was before we bid it out.
Okay. So how much does 10%, how much are we anticipating to generate from 10%?
$210,000 a year, first year.
Okay.
10 is, it's not, we've seen it as high as 20.
Yeah. Here's what I guess where my mind was going is that we're going to have a pretty good shortfall this first year, especially $400 and some thousand, right? And then it's going to probably decline as we lose some of our manpower. But on the other hand,
I think best case is it's going to be down that much. It's going to be down more than that until we lose these 3 people. Hopefully, this 400,000 or 500,000 that we can sell the garbage trucks for would ease that for a year or two. But I don't think
guess I was in hopes that maybe that fee could be adjusted to try to cover some of the shortfall. I mean, now's kind of the time that we're coming to the end of our discussion. We're understanding the numbers and what that looks like. We realize that not all of our employees want to go to work for Republic. They wanted to stay with us, which I guess I take that as a compliment to the city. But it is going to come with a, $500,000 cost, at least that first year. So right now, this is kind of that opportunity. We've been struck by something that was beyond our control, and that was the closure of a landfill. And for the rate to only go to where it's being proposed to go is really nothing. When you think about how long it's been since we've had an adjustment in the actual garbage rate, it's been years since we fought that fight. And that was a challenging time, obviously. So I guess what I'm sitting here thinking is, why not 15%? Why not 17%? And try to, I know in year one maybe it doesn't get neutralized, but maybe in some of the following years maybe it gets covered. Why not? And I'm asking everybody that question. We're the ones that get to make the decision tonight. Now's the time. We've talked for the past couple of years about the financial challenges that we've been dealing with and the shortfalls. And this is an opportunity on the front end to kind of get something set in place. And I guess I'm asking, why not?
Are you suggesting that we raise the rate?
The 10%, yeah.
Or the franchise fee?
One will cause the other.
Yeah.
If we ask them to increase to 15%, then they would say that's fine.
Then it's gonna raise, right.
But here's the resulting new rates.
Yeah.
Right.
We're talking about a minimal increase that hasn't taken place for several years.
Plus they'll get
Plus the
recycling.
recycling at the curbside. To me, that's huge.
That is huge.
Because I know in some discussions we had, we thought, well, if we did curbside recycling, we'd have to charge $3 to $5 per household, per month. So I guess I think it's worth talking about. I mean, we've been fighting for other things, guys. You all know that. The mayor's been to war over some of this stuff. And this seems like kind of low-hanging fruit to me. Am I missing something?
You're not missing anything, and you don't have the right to do that. We came at this in a pretty orderly fashion and came to you all to determine that percentage, and we did, and we're now ready to approve that. If you all want to change it, we can. You have the right to do that. It seems very late to me, but you all have the right to do that.
And I apologize for that, but at least tonight was a good summary of how the whole thing looks and works. And if, and I probably should have been a little bit more understanding of that earlier. Obviously wasn't on the committee, but that's okay. But anyway, hey, it's not too late, things happen.
What would happen if would you have to start over?
I don't know. I don't think legally we would have to rebid it, but that's a question that I would want to ask our expert. I think we made it pretty clear that we didn't want to do that. I'm not saying we can't or won't.
Yeah.
I am echoing what the mayor said, and that we kind of feel like that time has passed. But and you're never going to catch me arguing against additional revenue.
I'm trying to be helpful. I'm just trying to. I'm thinking.
But if we
things.
delay this, would that delay the February 1st starting date, which might cause the city more money?
My guess is if it does, that's okay. We will make it up over time.
We have 3 weeks between now and the next council meeting. We can certainly, at worst, have a council meeting, a special council meeting in between now and then, and have no effect.
Yeah.
The question is if our sort of expert franchise council says you really ought not to do that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. But let's assume that her answer is you can't do that, then I would not recommend it. But if her answer is sure you can do that, then it's the will of this body.
I guess I'm thinking of the fact that when we made the decision back when we were gonna put out the RFPs and we got them back, it was based on the fact that we were gonna do a 10%. And then the fee came back to us based on that assumption. But we were also under the assumption that more than likely we wouldn't have employees, that they would be offered jobs, and now here at the end, they don't want to leave. So that's been the added cost where I think we thought we were gonna save a little bit of money there. Not to say that I'm not for keeping them, because I think it's a great idea. I do, I think it's an opportunity for Georgetown. But I think given the fact that that's happened, then I can see where David's coming from, but I understand that going back to them, they might not like it, and if the public, the customers might have to pay more, but it wouldn't hurt to ask if we didn't have to bid it out, and you just gotta ask
I mean,
the
here's the
questions.
thing, the Republic isn't gonna care. It's a pass-through for them.
Bonus.
They care not.
Okay.
I mean, frankly, they'll simply say, here's the new rates, and it'll be 5% more.
And at the time we bid it, it was comparing apples to apples, everybody was bidding the same rate.
Right.
And then you all did say that we'd be able to come back and negotiate some of the finer points. You know, I don't know how fine a point this is, but
I'm hesitant to raise rates on the senior citizens.
I think we adjusted that, didn't we?
yeah, we did.
That doesn't have to change.
That would have to change.
I wouldn't think so.
No, they would increase the rates across the board. So the breakdown, it's $12.65 regular solid waste, $10.75 senior solid waste, $3.03 regular recycling, and $2.34 senior recycling. And since it's mandatory, that combined rate is that $15.68, and
So they
then
would all go up.
so everyone's rate would increase to cover that extra 5%.
Everybody's at the same thing.
How many people over the allotted amount would we be right now? How many employees over the allotted amount?
Three.
Three.
Yeah.
Robert, how many are you slated to lose in the next year?
Well, I've got 4 or 5 that can retire next 2 or 3 years. I've got a couple that can retire now.
We
4 or 5.
anticipate
4 or 5.
that would be a very short transition period. If history is any indication, we lose 4 or 5 people a year at a turnaround in public works and sanitation. So.
Exactly.
Well, here's the other thing too. I do not have 33 employees right now.
Right.
We have 33 spots.
Yeah.
I do not have 33 employees.
Do you have 17 or 19?
17 in
No,
public
okay.
works.
17 in public works.
Yeah.
We've got 29 right now. Total, that's everybody.
Field.
Yeah, but we know that we've been shorthanded and we've been underfunded, and that's one of the reasons we haven't been able to address many of the things that we wanted to address. And if we're concerned about senior citizens, we can tweak that. You know, we can adjust that $1. I mean, that was a number we all came up with. So we could say, hey, we're gonna tweak that down $1, but the percentage increase will still take effect, so that there's not a true net gain. And that's a possibility. There are a lot of possibilities. And I don't mean throwing about a curveball. I mean, it's just sitting here thinking about this. Why do we want to continue to see a loss year after year after year after year after year when we can perhaps shore it up right now? I mean, this has been the most important issue that we've been dealing with for the past 2 years, that the mayor's been the forefront of.
Have we signed anything yet?
No, we haven't.
That's waiting on you all.
We've been coming back to the council, but anything has changed. So,
Can
Well,
you
it's
find
worth
out
asking.
if it requires us to rebid,
Sure.
if we change the rate, if we tweak it?
It would definitely require us to have it in the first reading, no matter what. But yeah, we can find out. We can ask Linda tomorrow.
And how long is our first contract with them? 5 years or 10 years? 5.
With 2 optional renewals,
So 5.
2 years each.
2 years.
2 years each. So total of 9 possible.
All right.
Given the fact that they gave us an exceptionally low rate, I think in large measure to the work the committee did, and you all did, to let them shoot very accurately. If you'll do this, you may want to ask for 20.
get as favorable a rate from them rebidding it either. By coming back and saying, well, we want more. They say,
Like Andrew said, it's not gonna matter to the vendor.
Yeah.
Republic is not, they've been transparent, this will pass right along to the ratepayer. So it's not it's an issue of whether we're legally obligated to rebid it. But they won't care what the rate is, because their profit margin's not gonna change.
Chief, you can go back to alternative 2, Andrew. I just want to make sure I understand. Chief Brewer? Yes. Right, if that's what we end up, if we choose alternative 2, it's your total public works authorized staff will be 26, correct?
Yes.
Where would you be right now? If this was in place right now, what's your head count right now, today?
29.
And you've got 4 to 5 people over the next 12 months that could retire?
2 over the next 12. You know, one is retired now, one is can retire in 5 months. And then I've got another 3 or 4 that could retire in the next 3 or 4 years. And I've also got 3 that have already retired once. Guess they can leave anytime too.
I apologize again. Where would you be now on head count today?
He's got 29 total people, and all 29 of those will move over. Let's say it happened tomorrow. All 29 of those would move over to Public Works once sanitation went away. But 3 of those would be eliminated over time through attrition. And those are all driver positions. There are, however, within the 26 authorizers currently vacancies. So there's a lot of swapping and filling that have to be done, but ultimately it ends up at 26. Whereas he's at a current Public Works authorized strength today of 19, and a full Public Works and Sanitation authorized strength of 33.
Yes.
Makes sense? I know it's a lot of different numbers to toss around, but it's a gain of 7 people in Public Works is the way to think of it.
We have 1 council meeting left this year, which is the next council. If you go back to try to have further discussion or negotiation, we would still try to get, did I hear you earlier say that worst case, we could just call a special meeting before the end of this year? Is the goal to have this done before December 31st in a perfect world? Is that our target?
If I think they're pretty certain that we're going to approve this.
Okay.
But yeah, they've got a lot of steps they've got to take once we approve the contract. That's all. But if we call a special meeting, we can, if Devin and Andrew determine that we can do this, it's the council's wishes. Be done.
I think it'd be interesting to know if it has to be put back out to bid, or if we could just go back and request. I think that would be the appropriate question. And if we don't have to put it out to bid, and they're open to it, what that raise would be.
Yeah.
And if we
Get
can-
you both those pieces of information. I would ask from a practical standpoint, the last thing we want to happen is to go back and find out all of this is possible and they're all able to do it, and then we come back here in a week and there's not enough people to support that. Am I making sense?
You're saying, do we support the
Yeah.
rate increase on the citizens
Right.
before we go ask for this? Because
Yeah.
if not, we'll go back and do a lot of work and then we would vote not to do it.
Yeah,
You don't want a commitment.
right. I mean, does that make sense what I'm asking? In other words, we're willing to go ask what the body wants us to do.
It's fair, I think.
A lot of selling on this idea was the fact that the garbage rates only went up 68 cents.
Right.
Selling to who?
The general public.
We had no choice.
Oh, no, there's no doubt. But that was a lot of the selling point, was the 68 cents.
And
There was a lot of people, and there's a lot of people still calling me today about why are we closing the recycling center? Because there's a lot of elderly people that only leave their house to go where? The recycling center. So,
You know, I mean, I feel like a slight increase in a rate is, I mean, I wouldn't have any problem with it because I'm getting curbside recycling. And I wouldn't have any problem explaining that to someone, yes, it did go up 2% or 3%, or whatever it is we say. It's a matter of $1 or $2. And you're getting recycling every week at your door.
no, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, right, still. Personally, I wouldn't have a problem explaining that to a constituent. That's my 2 cents.
Mayor, I just want to clarify, are we talking about going up to 20% from franchise fee? Is that what we've thrown out?
No,
Instead of 10?
I just asked the question, as the council considers this, what is the number,
Yeah.
what is the number that we should go back to recover with?
And if we went to 20%, how much would that increase the monthly bill? Would it just be $1, or would it be $1.50? Would it be, would we be maybe paying $17 a month instead of $15.58? What are we talking about?
10% of the, what is it, 16?
$15.68.
$1.60.
$1.50?
$1.60.
Yeah.
You gotta do a little algebra, but yeah, more or less. I had a formula figured out for how you figure out what the discount is.
And when was the last time we raised the rates, garbage rates? We talked about it, I just can't remember what year it was.
15?
8 or 9.
15 years?
Be about $17.
2008.
15 years.
I mean,
So you were raising it $1.50 a month, and you're getting curbside recycling to go with it.
Well, if you raised it to 20%, that monthly rate would go from 15.68.
$3.
Be $17.
It'd be
No,
seven.
it's right, it's $17.
Little, about $2.
What our financial
Way out,
person?
way out, it was about 17, 14.
And how much money, how much would our difference be that we would bring in?
So for every 5% that you raise it, that's another $100,000 in franchise revenue. 105, and that's the first year.
And what were you forecasting the loss to be after the next slide?
490,000, general
That was the
fund.
first year though, right?
Right.
And then years after that, though, once it settles down?
No, that's the settle down.
That is
That is the settle down?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the franchise revenue that's listed at $210,000, that's 10%.
That's correct.
And we're talking about potentially moving to 20%,
Right. So
which basically would double that, correct?
420,000.
Okay.
So, just so I understand, we're talking about $490,000 loss that we don't have today. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what if you shake it all out with the changes,
Yeah.
the franchise fee, you're talking about a change to our general fund budget you need an additional 490,000. You got 177 for those three temporary employees, if you will, on top of that. But I'm excluding that from the equation
Okay.
for purposes of understanding.
So $500,000 a year going forward.
Correct.
This seems easy to me.
All right, so the CPI level is 3%, so it can go 3% per year, correct?
It will go
Potentially,
3%
or we'll
per
go
year.
3% per year.
Not
We went for a flat rate, we didn't do the CPI, did we? The 3% is the flat rate.
3% is what, right, correct. Not CPI, 3%.
We first came to the council with just the annual CPI. Then given what's happened to the inflation rate recently, we reconsidered if that was a good idea. So instead of the annual CPI, we're now recommending a 3% regardless of the CPI.
Understand. Okay.
Which means it would go up about 50 cents a year.
Basically, that's what I'm.
Well, I don't know what y'all's calculations are, but when we're doing 20% on 1568, I came up with 1882. Not calculating wrong.
You're adding the 20%.
Yeah, you
What's
said
already
10%.
got
You
10%.
should have added 10 because of your.
10%'s already.
Because we already did the
Yes.
10%. All right, I like it better. I'm not sure about that 18%, $18, okay.
So Andrew, if we went to 20%, where would the $500,000, where would it go? Just to make sure I understand that.
It would go to 290,000, 280,000.
Still a loss.
Yeah, still a loss, which we haven't talked about, but Stacy did a deep dive into our revenue growth, and we're confident that we will be able to make up that increase through revenue growth. It's actually been really, really strong. Stacy, did you want to hit on those numbers?
We looked at the past 5 years of revenue growth. Our average revenue growth over the last 5 years for the general fund revenue is 6%. The lowest percentage we've had over the last 5 years is a 3% revenue growth. So taking the average out 6%, you're looking at 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 million revenue growth each year for the next 3 years. If you take the lowest percentage of 3%, you're looking at between 820 up to 878,000 per year. So obviously that's about half of the 6%. So we do, as long as our local economy, which our local economy has stayed strong at this point, even in the face of other things going on, our revenue trends continue somewhere between 3 to 6%.
We knew that the $500,000 per year was something that was manageable within the current revenue picture. And we can term it a loss. It's an additional expense. It's an additional investment in public works. It's a loss or an investment. We don't expect them to turn profits, but they do, but it does cost us.
But staying the same and not making the change costs more.
I'm sorry.
Staying the same and not making the change costs more to the general fund. If
That's
we do
correct.
alternative ones.
That's correct.
Yes, at that point,
And you do not get curbside inside.
yes.
And you don't get curbside.
At that point, you're either going to have general fund supplementing sanitation or be talking about raising rates.
Right, so, okay, so if we didn't do it, we'd have to raise the rates.
If you didn't want general fund to supplement.
I hate that we're on the back end of this, doing this, but the thing is we're doing it for the first time. It's the first time it's going out to the public with the change. So if you're ever going to work it in, it probably is the wisest time to work it in. Because they're getting an additional service that they haven't had before. And so if it's easy, and nothing's easy, but if it's not a bunch of hoops to go through, it's worth asking, I think. What do you guys, you were on the,
Well, I agree with David, but my thing is, basically instead of 9 out of 10 right now, what's the, perception that we're gonna get with the public? I mean, it's like Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown at the last minute. So,
And that's my thought, if we go back and look at trying to change it, does the Republic say, well, we slow pitched you a great deal last time.
Right.
Tough luck. We're gonna, you want curbside recycling, we threw that in at no extra spend. Well, guess what? We're gonna make you pay for it now. At what we're about to cross the finish line, do they come back and say, okay, you want to change something? We're gonna change something.
We're just talking about the franchise fee, right? Do we not charge 10% on a franchise fee to all the people that we have?
We
So
do.
would this not also be an opportunity if we start this, that when we get ready to renew the other franchise fees, that we can raise that another 10% and in essence, they have additional revenue coming in?
Well, you bring up a good point because the way we call it in the ordinance, we call it the non-exclusive franchise. This is what we're talking about today, is an exclusive franchise. So no one else but Republic would have the right to haul garbage. We've long had a non-exclusive franchise. So a person who comes and drops off a 30-yard dumpster in your driveway and comes and hauls it back, anybody has the ability to do it, but they're still required to pay us 10% fee. But we don't award that franchise to anyone because it's non-exclusive, right? You basically you have the franchise when you file your tax report with Tracy. So, yeah, I mean, theoretically, we talked about consistency. We'd want to keep that the same. But it's just a number in an ordinance. That one I have a high level of comfort in. You can set it in whatever you want, as long as it's not confiscatory.
I'm not sure how much I worry about what the public thinks. I mean, we're the customer, they would need to make us happy. I mean, they're selling to us, we're not selling to them. And then this thing gets bid out in 5 more years, right? I mean, doesn't that happen automatically in 5 years?
Unless you renew.
Unless we're renewed. So
Like 9 years max. 9 years maximum.
And you all said this is a pass-through, so it's kind of a moot point to them. So I
There's
don't
no
see
question.
that being an issue.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just throwing out the what ifs and the
Okay.
devil's advocate.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd say is, we've been doing these Zoom meetings, having in person, in face-to-face and in person. We haven't had them in the room explaining things to us, It's just a little different format. And now we're here in the room, we're going to talk about it. We see a nice presentation, and it dawned on me. Why do we want to operate with $500,000 negative, I'd say loss or expense if we can neutralize that a little bit? It's just that's it.
If
As
it's
hard as
easy.
the mayor's been fighting for revenue, this seems like that opportunity, not to waste.
If it's easy, they may say, well, let's just, if that's what you want, we'll just plug this factor in, and it's that simple. But it may be, like you said, if you have to start over, it's not worth discussing, in my opinion.
And it won't be Republic's call on that, I don't think. They're going to be game. It's going to be whether we are legally obligated to do something different. And that's not a question we're prepared to answer tonight, because we don't know.
I wouldn't want to rebid it. I wouldn't go through.
Rebidding would be a disaster.
It would cost us a lot of money too, to keep doing what we're doing.
But if it's a phone call, then that can be an email.
David, I have the utmost respect for your opinion on this. I will be able to take this one. I see it a little different. I realize the negative what's highlighted there. I'm looking at it a little different. Math is not my strongest of suits. Trying to do math on my telephone.
No,
I got mixed feelings on this.
Let me try to help here. Everybody's wanting to do the right thing and get to the best place. Staff is ready to do whatever council wishes us to do. We're used to doing that. What if Is there a motion that that asks Devin and Andrew to get with our outside counsel, and we've used outside counsel, Linda Ames, throughout much of this, and to get an opinion, if the majority of the council, we can do this in the form of a motion and a vote if we want to, but I can, if she says that this can be done legally and it doesn't require a rebid, so one of you can move that we change this figure to 20%. If that gets seconded, we can do it, and we can see what the council members present think about moving forward that way. You all, we're all trying to do the right thing, but since some angst, and I
Could we make the motion and do it up to 20%? And that way it would give us give your staff the latitude to slide that up to 20%.
well, this is going to be this is a council decision. I've publicly told folks what this rate is. I've told them what I'm going to do, and I've told them what the deal is. If we want to change it and increase it, that's going to be a council decision. I'm not doing it. But I understand if you all want to.
We can find out what both scenarios look like. I mean, issue number one is, can we do it? And honestly, that's all I'm concerned about. You all get to be concerned about everything else.
That would be the only motion that I would be in favor of, is raising it to the 20%, but only if we don't have to rebid it. That it's just something that is a question, and if it's gonna be that we can't, then it's a moot point.
We're happy to go on a fact-finding mission.
It's the first reading,
It's-
right?
Yeah,
So-
and we don't even, if we're gonna go on a fact-finding mission, let's just not have that first reading. Because no matter what, we're coming back for a special call meeting, right? Unless.
That's what I'm saying, is if we do first reading tonight and we find out we would have to rebid it,
That's true.
we've already done first reading. The only question is,
That's a
are we doing
good
first reading in vain when
That's a good point.
we're not certain about it? So, I mean, I think it's okay either way. If we find out that we have to rebid it, we've already done our first reading at that point.
I like that.
Yes.
It's not the first time we've done a first reading and had to do another first reading. We're changing something, so,
Right.
yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, that would be a pretty material change, so it would obviously need another first reading if we change it to 20%.
Your point's well taken. Why waste the opportunity to do
Yes.
it now?
Get the reading on the record, and if we determine that we don't have to rebid, we can come back with a new ordinance for first reading again.
We would only have a special meeting if we had to do the first reading.
Yeah,
Correct.
or you end up coming back for the second reading as scheduled with the ordinance as it is today.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Mark, could you speak to your hesitation?
Try to choose my words carefully. Yeah, I was on council the last time, I think several of us were on council the last time we did, when we raised the rates. And there were some upset people, I guess, putting it mildly. And it wasn't, if memory serves me correct, it wasn't a significant increase, but it was an increase.
From 8 to 15.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Almost
Double.
Yeah.
So if you look at this, there's a 3% CPI, regardless if we start at 1568 or if we start at 1714, correct? Still going to be a 3% CPI. But at the end of 5 years, if you start at 1714, we're going to be right at $20 a month. And it's great because we're providing recycling, but what about the people that don't recycle? Now, they're going to see a $5 a month increase. Again, I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking about what we did. I didn't realize it was as much as it was. I was thinking it was a small amount, but regardless, it was still an increase. That was pretty substantial. But if we do 10%, or if we do 15%, if we do 20%, I'm sorry, most companies, none that I'm aware of, are going to absorb that cost. They're going to pass that cost on to the final end user, which is the resident. So I'm just thinking, $20 a month in 5 years versus maybe without starting out at 17, 14, it's still going to be close to 20, but it's not going to be 20. It's going to be under 20. So that's my hesitation. I completely understand what you're saying. I can see the numbers clearly. But it's mainly for the people that don't recycle. You know, they want to see it over the next 5 years. It's going to be pretty. Where we're at now versus where we're at 5 years, that's a pretty big increase. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. That's my hesitation.
That's fair, and the way I look at it, you know, that was 12 or 13 years ago, 2008 or 9, whatever Chief Ruben said. If we had a 2 or 3% increase built into the CPI at that time, which probably would have been a good idea, where would we be today? We'd be much higher,
Yeah.
as you well know.
Yeah.
And then I've had people who live in the county tell me they pay $30 for monthly pickup. $30+ dollars. I don't know, you know, if that's accurate, but that's what I've been told.
That's accurate.
That's accurate? Okay. I don't know, guys. Again, I mean, we've been on this fact-finding mission for the past couple of years, looking at our revenues and looking at our forecasting, and we know that our expenses are going to go up. If inflation's at 6%, I know our revenue may go up, and that's wonderful, but I guarantee you our expenses are going to go up that much as well. We know about the retirement system and those costs. We know about the gas. You know, we're not getting the revenue to pave our roads. I mean, there's many things that the mayor's talked about. Many. And I just see this as that opportunity. I'm sorry it's the first reading. I'm sorry it's tonight. I'm sorry we haven't had meetings in person. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But I'm not sorry so much that I'm bringing it up. It needs to be thought about. It's worthwhile to think about.
So, what do we do?
Okay, go ahead and hold first reading of both ordinances. We'll do the research and get back to you all, and if we don't have to go out to bid and we can just renegotiate that and get revised rates, we'll come back for a special call meeting for 2 new first reads.
I think that special call meeting can be done via Zoom and probably be pretty brief.
Say so.
Or if we wanted to be in person, it could be, if it's gonna be for a first reading, we're just here to hear Tracy read them out loud. Does that scratch the itch and keep it open both ways?
So,
Okay, then Tracy, why don't we go ahead with the first reading? We understand that the first reading, if we learn that this can be changed without rebidding and redoing the process, this first reading is for naught. Correct?
Right, holding first reading in the event that we can't renegotiate without going back to bid.
Then it is for, thank you.
An ordinance related to the granting of a franchise for the provision of solid waste and recycling collection service within the city limits of Georgetown. Summary. 1. Awards an exclusive solid waste collection service franchise to Republic Services of Kentucky, LLC, and imposes a 10% franchise fee. 2. Authorizing the mayor to sign the franchise agreement. 3. Provides for repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date of February 1, 2022, and upon passage of publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced to public read for the first time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. And why don't we go ahead and have first reading of the amendment to the solid waste ordinance?
An ordinance amending Chapter 40, Article 2 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances regarding solid waste collection and disposal. Summary. 1. Amend section 40.40-23 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances to provide for collection and disposal of solid waste via exclusive franchise and provides a penalty for violation thereof. 2, establishes consistency by including references to exclusive solid waste franchisee throughout the article. 3, states the penalty for solid waste service delinquency shall be the same as the charge assessed for delinquent water and sewer fees. 4, provides that GMWSS shall remit to the city fees and penalties for solid waste services on at least a quarterly basis. 5, indicates the rate for collection shall be provided in the franchise agreement with the exclusive solid waste franchisee. 6, provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date of February 1, 2022, and upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Devin, if that first reading should be a good first reading regardless of what we do.
Yes, so that was first reading of both ordinances, assuming that we maintain the 10% on the non-exclusive and that we impose a 10% on the exclusive. If we gather more information and the council would like an ordinance imposing a 20%, it would be a new first reading.
Thank you. You all will need to talk outside council. Do you think a week or so? We can get that answer?
It's pretty responsive, so I assume we can get it on the phone tomorrow, and I'll discuss with the Republic as well, assuming, depending on how the conversation with her goes. So.
Okay. Good.
Okay, can I ask you a question that relates to this?
Sure.
And I think I'm assuming the answer, because we're ordering 500 new containers, I guess, are those green containers? Did you all decide to stick with the green Herbies?
Well, the Herbies, they're going to keep the ones, correct me if I'm right, Robert, or if I'm wrong, they're going to let us keep using the green ones. As they become disrepair or we run out of stock, then they switch over to the blue. And it's at no cost to us, and any that are damaged, the public comes in and replaces them with no cost to us or the citizens.
David has asked about the possibility of keeping the green containers that the city currently has. And we've explored that with Republic for the visual impact, I think, is the consideration. To do that, Republic has offered us, was it
29 cents a month a can.
Republic has offered, the only way we could do that was if we continued to buy Herbies and stockpile them and repair them. And then the idea was to rent them to Republic so we could keep the green ones for the visual purposes. What Republic has offered us is 29 cents a month. Our math shows that it would take us 14 years at 29 cents a month to pay off the original cost of the Herbie if there were no maintenance, warehouse, or repair cost.
Or delivery.
Or delivery cost. So what we have discussed and recommended is that we understand that there will be at some point different colored Herbies, Republic Blue and some of ours. But if the council wishes to go in another direction, we know that we can continue to buy Herbies, the color of our choice, and warehouse them and rent them to Republic at 29 cents a month. So they've done the math for us.
Do you all know how that breaks down by chance? I mean, how they come up with 29 times what? I mean, what do you mean?
I I don't know.
That's what we had negotiations with them, right, because we talked about the idea of us leasing them, and they said, that's something we're familiar with, here's what we're prepared to pay you. So we did our own math, we just did a bid, you all get ready to hear it tonight.
Right.
We took our math and we multiplied it out, and like I said, you got a cart that has a 10-year lifespan in general, but it would take us 14 years to recover that cost, that 29 cents per cart per month.
About $67, is that what you're saying?
Well, you can do it for each cart if you wanted, but we took that number, 29 cents, and multiplied it out until you got to the cost, right? And then you take that and divide it back by the number of months to get to.
Also, the cost would be we would recoup about 42,000 from them, is what he said.
Right.
But we're gonna spend probably 50 to 60 to buy the earth.
I mean, it's the same math. We're gonna spend more each year in carts than we would get over the course of the lifespan of the product. Does that make sense? And certainly each year, we're gonna spend more because.
They're gonna go up.
Right. So in other words, we have to keep the color of the cart because they buy in the hundreds of thousands of carts nationwide. They get such a discount. We would have to subsidize that in order to keep the color of the carts.
Well, we're gonna have to subsidize $500,000 a year.
Correct.
That doesn't seem to, I mean, how much does that bother us? Bothers me. So does the color.
Yeah, on the color, the council can make a decision to keep green herbs. It would require us staying in the solid waste business to buy the Herbies, warehouse the Herbies, and repair the Herbies. We will lose money on it. The value is you won't have blue Herbies. To me, that's not worth the money. But aesthetically, I can drive through Lexington and I go down any street and I'll see 5 or 6 different cans on a given street. They don't match. Matching trash cans are not. We all see things differently. That's not an aesthetic I'm willing to pay for. But if the council's willing to pay for that, we will do that.
I would have trouble, just in my own mind, paying extra for the green Herbies and raising the fee. I would not want to spend money on it. Even though I would like the aesthetics, I just don't think I'm willing to.
Are the recycling ones red?
They're blue.
They're still.
The way it works is you got blue, and the trash can has a black lid, and the recycling bin has a blue lid that matches.
If we move forward with the proposal, at the end of 5 years, now that's a long ways down the road, if we end up at that, or if a future council and a future mayor end up 5 years down the road saying, we're going to go to another company, who owns those Herbies at that point? Or are we going to have, will the public come back and take up all those Herbies? Will they come back and take all the Herbies that they've supplied, and then we got to start over again with a new company? Or will those Herbies stay there with that household for the new company that comes in?
For the Herbies.
I didn't mean to make that confusing, but.
No, that's fine. For the Herbies that they bring in, that's their Herbies. We kept the provision that whatever is in rotation that's ours, that's green, we keep that. But in 5 years, the number of those is gonna be, cut in half.
And there's no charge for new ones as they break down. And the
It's built into the
lifespan
fee.
is, so eventually you would have all blue, not your favorite color.
If you stay with them for 20 years, eventually, all the carts are gonna be blue, or 99.9. There are carts that
Probably
last
9
20
years.
years. Yeah.
They were on blue.
But yes.
The reason we're asking for them tonight is I've got to make it to February 1st.
Right.
Yeah, we've just, that's the point, David. This is only to get us through a new contract.
Yeah.
It's not what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So I figured it was a good time to have the conversation. But we will ask you to approve that smaller amount. In fact, I think we're approving a whole truckload, but we're only buying a portion of it, is that right?
100 tonight is what we're asking.
Yeah, 100 is what we're asking for.
Just if
But
the
we may have-
contract were to get delayed, we want the ability to order more to get us through until the contract starts.
I just want to make sure,
Yeah,
we've
I'm
got a lot
gonna
of
order more.
new construction.
Let's double up on it. You need a motion? I'll make a motion, Mayor. We got there yet?
We're not even on that agenda item.
So, if we have to get together for a special meeting on ordinances, you can consider colors. You've got options. You can have green, it's gonna cost you. It's not staff's recommendation, but it's your all's choice.
Well, I feel like I do need to add one more point to that. If we do that option for audit purposes and a number of things, and Stacy can speak to this more, we would probably have to do a separate lease agreement. It would be separate from the franchise agreement. And that was one of the other factors that led us to believe that the expense associated with it was a little bit burdensome. It's not just the 10 to 15,000 we're supplementing annually. It's the public works personnel, and it's a lot from an audit perspective. Stacy's gotten to know that from our fleet management side. So she's picturing, instead of managing a fleet of, 200 vehicles, you're managing a fleet of 14,000 Herbies. So that was another factor. I just wanted to put that on the record because I know Stacy's over there ready to pull her hair out.
That's
We'll do
new,
whatever we have to
that's
do.
part of the new GASB 87 standard, right?
Yeah, there are new lease standards, whether you're leasing to or from, lease accounting is a thing now, so.
Well, maybe we can all compromise, maybe we can all compromise on this.
Mayor, speaking of that, I was gonna ask the question, that's been answered, but, if we own these, they have to be on our books, the lease value or the value.
If we're leasing to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and then there's all kinds of complexities with the lease accounting involved in that, correct?
Yeah, I do it right now
So-
with vehicles, but
and-
it's obviously far less
You know,
vehicles.
I'm experiencing it myself right now. It's really troublesome. So I'm just trying to help Stacy here.
I'm trying to help Stacy too.
Okay, page 2. Number 11, Human Resources, first reading of an amendment to the ordinance, sponsored by Lesbian Well. This is adding the position of risk manager. We also talked about another position that we're not ready to quite pull the trigger on. So this tonight is just for that position of risk manager.
An ordinance amending section 2-111 of the Code of Ordinances to add a risk manager to general government and change the grade of the human resource specialist. Summary. 1. Amend section 2-11 subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to add the position of risk manager to general government. 2. Amend section 2-111 subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to change the grade of the human resource specialist from grade 8 to grade 9. 3. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Item 12 on our agenda under Public Works is a municipal order approving the purchase of Herbies.
That's a motion for approval, Mayor.
Is there a motion's been made for approval? Is there a second?
Please, I'll second.
Thank you, Greg.
They can sponsor that?
I don't think there's any more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well, we're down to council person, so I can just start on, yes.
Before you go, any council comments? Mr. Esposito here would like to make a comment about Bruce Langford. If you,
Oh.
you've got a moment.
Yes, please do, thank you.
Didn't mean to drag this meeting out longer, and I didn't really find it appropriate at the top of the agenda, but I did want to point out, since it has been posted in the news graphic obituaries, Georgetown, not just Georgetown Municipal, steal your words from a previous loss, we lost a giant on Saturday. From what I've heard from the Langford family, they're keeping it a private matter and taking it really hard. At a time in the future that the Langfords are ready, the utility, the staff, myself, the board of commissioners, we will be doing something to honor his decades of service to this utility. And when we come up with what that honoring is, we hope that you all will attend. But the obituary is posted. I learned a lot just when I read it quickly, but what a legacy.
What a remarkable legacy, not only in service to GMWSS, but to the legal profession. How long he taught, and basically, he was on the other side of it, but he helped us build planning and zoning here, and do it very professionally. So, thank you for mentioning that. Just before we start council comments as well, the point that I left Scott Industrial Forum with is that we talked about our search for answers and how we went to data and how we've examined data, and that's the path we've been on. And I told them that we asked them if they wanted to see the video or would they like to talk. And I told them, in my opinion, that right now, this document, A Brighter Future, the one we started on this, is even more relevant than the video on gross receipts. The gross receipts tax was, when we began to realize there were inequities with gross receipts, you can't just say there are inequities. We had to have something with which to contrast it. So we proposed a discussion of the gross receipts tax because it provides a contrast with what we currently have. So we stopped short of where we wanted to finish with the gross receipts conversation, but it's still relevant. And the important takeaway is this is still relevant. What we learned about our police department and our fire department and our needs are still relevant. And you have done incredible work in the revenues that you increased. But I just, while we are not going to pursue a gross receipts tax right now, this document is more relevant than it's ever been. We're going to drive this stake in the ground to figure out how to do it. This is not a retreat. I want you to know that. Chief Bossy and others, that this is not a retreat from what we know we have to do. We're just going to come at it in a slightly different way and deal with it in a productive way for both the community and the council. So I'll get off my soapbox there. And Mark, can we start with you now?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
All good.
All right.
I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
Mayor, I appreciate the comments on Bruce Langford. He was a special individual and a true gentleman to this community, there's no doubt. And I know oftentimes he was kind of on the other side, but he always did it with the utmost of integrity and respect, honesty, and just outstanding character. And then to follow suit, Mayor, on what you're talking about, you know, sometimes in the business world that I've seen, oftentimes people look for a silver bullet to be the answer to fix a problem. But oftentimes there's not a silver bullet. And I'm not saying that gross receipts was a silver bullet, but it was a big bullet for sure, right?
It was a gamble.
So the term, going from a silver bullet to maybe a shotgun approach is kind of appropriate. And what we mean by that is, instead of there being just one thing that really solves the problem, now you've got the shotgun, all these little pellets of things that you can look at. And to me, that's why I got a little bit passionate tonight when I started thinking about, let's just say $250,000 a year. If we could bump this up another 10% and capture $250,000 a year, all of a sudden in 5 years, that's $1 million. $1 million goes somewhere. So, to me, I like looking at things like that and seeing if, and to me, it wasn't too late. It was the first reading. It might not have been perfect, but hey, it's better to go ahead and talk about it now than not talk about it at all. So, I guess that's what I've got to say. And hopefully folks will be receptive to thinking about it between now and the next time that we discuss it. So, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's late, but I started advertising the plan for establishing best use of the ARPA funds on social media as our revised plan said we should do. I still think that this needs to be revised again because by November 31st, we are supposed to have condensed our ARPA use presentation, created infographics, created a list of sample projects and programs, we have posted to our website, and the questionnaire has gone out. It's a bit hard to get to that point. Some people talk to me and they say if we could put that when you first go to the page, people are having trouble accessing it. I was able to get to it, but it's a bit hidden. And we're supposed to have ads in the news graphic, Google survey with poll, we've got that. It says we're supposed to have QR posters around town. And a public hearing with ABCD, and that's all by November 31st.
Yeah.
So
Things have
we
been,
have a lot of flexibility. We just need to bump the dates and keep plugging away. And
things have been even further complicated by the idea that ARPA funds may hopefully be completely opened up to anything we want to do it.
oh wow.
So the U.S. Senate actually unanimously passed a bill that does just that. Takes the first $10 million of every local government's allocation and says basically it's general fund money. So once we learn that, the idea of putting a whole bunch of effort into trying to get public input on all these little, very narrow things that we can do with it kind of started to melt away in my mind. The House has yet to take up that legislation, unfortunately. But there's actually companion legislation sponsored by just as many people. So I anticipate that that is exactly what's going to happen. And hopefully it happens by the end of this year, in which case all of our conversation kind of starts over. Not completely, but suddenly the realm of possibilities of what we can do with it is completely different.
Yeah, but it still means that the input that we've gotten is still relevant.
It is. And I think I'm happy to revise that again. I think what I'd like to do is to simply say to the public, keep submitting your ideas. And if they do indeed change, then just seek general input. And then bring back a report to you all. I agree, and I completely respect it, that we're behind on that plan once again. But that is on our mind, at least as an excuse.
Okay, thank you.
They keep changing the rules.
Yeah, I know. The other thing is the planning and zoning and comprehensive plan, when they've already passed it, we seem a bit stuck. To be able to, I had to make a couple votes tonight with that I felt a bit uncomfortable with because of safety issues on 25. And, if I could give a word to planning and zoning, I just wonder if we're not passing things at the planning and zoning level that tie our hands a bit to be able to do anything about it. It's just a minor frustration, but it seems like once those things get through planning and zoning and it aligns with the comprehensive plan, then it would almost take a Mack truck to reverse it, and I hope the public understands that. So, and briefly, I thought that the Kentucky League of Cities training on home insecure and homeless people is one of the best trainings I've been to. I hope we can revisit some ideas for how to address that. It would take almost $23 an hour to be able to have a person be able to afford to live in Georgetown. It was nice because they actually used Georgetown numbers in the entire presentation. So that training was good, and we finished up our undivided racial training, which I think we could revisit as well. So thank you, Mary.
The only thing I have is, Chase, appreciate your comments on Mr. Langford. I had the opportunity to work with him on the opposite side for 8 years on planning and development. He showed us the utmost respect and integrity every time he appeared before us. So he's left a legacy, he's going to be here with us. So.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you all very much. And if there's nothing else to come before the council, we'll stand adjourned. Andrew, we didn't even go to work,
No, we didn't. We both would have failed this.
I'll wait, I'll guess.
You said 10 minutes.
Not o'clock. You would have been right. You read like the best of them. Good Thanksgiving.
Thumbs up.